This episode is part 2 of how to craft an offer and sell it fast. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, where I share the steps to create, package and deliver an online group program, I encourage you to do that first and then come back to this episode afterwards. Because today, now that we have crafted our offer, we're shifting the focus to how you can sell it. See you in a jiffy. Welcome to the Leverage Business Podcast, where we believe business success is about working smarter, not harder. Leveraging your time and expertise in ways that fit the digital age you and your clients live in today. I'm your host, Jay Allison, author of Leverage Consulting in the Digital Age and founder of the iSuccess Business Academy. And every week I'll be sharing insights into how you can apply the power of leverage to grow your consulting, coaching, or other expert services business and create true freedom and independent success with mindset, marketing, and money model breakthroughs. Because when you get leveraged, the sky's the limit. Let's go for it. Hello, and welcome back. How did you get on with thinking about your online group program? Are you ready to put the pieces together so you can sell it consistently over and over? Great, then that's what this part 2 of how to craft an offer and sell it fast is all about. We're going to look at ways you can build an effective sales process that gets people excited and engaged about your offer, creates trust, and moves them to enroll on your program. If you did your due diligence and that market research I mentioned, and you've created your offer around the things your target audience told you they desperately wanted to achieve, you've got a great head start on what most people do, or rather what they don't do, the steps they skip. The question for creating and selling online group programs is how can we use these requirements and desires for professional and personal growth as part of the demand narrative for what we offer? Here's what we'll cover. Offer positioning when your participant isn't the buyer. Creating a compelling demand narrative. Assembling and engaging a high-value customer journey, B2B or B2C. Deciding on a launch or a rolling strategy. Why you should have a free webinar and how to promote it. And making the offer on a discovery call. So let's dive in. And we're going to start with offer positioning when your participant isn't the buyer. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, if your program falls into the continuing professional development or CPD category, then it may be either something that an individual wants to do for their own professional or personal development or for business development, or it's something that an organization, perhaps their employer, may pay for them to do. This distinction between business to business or B2B and business to customer, B2C, is important because your strategy to sell your program is likely to be vastly different. Generally speaking, if you're selling into organizations, you won't want or need a fancy digital marketing funnel. You're going to want people to find you through your expert positioning and then arrange a conversation. If you're selling to individuals, you may want to take the same approach depending on your price point. For instance, there's 2 reasons I enroll people one by one onto my online group program. Firstly, I don't just want anyone to join. And secondly, because when the price is high, it's a more considered purchase for your prospect. There is a way around having to do lots of sales calls, and that's to use a webinar as part of your marketing campaign, and we're going to cover that in a moment. What that tells us is that it's important to really know who you're selling to, and this comes out in the distinction between whether it's an organization who will buy places on your program for their staff or an individual who makes the decision and is paying for the program out of their own pocket. Either way, you have to think about who in the organization you need to capture the interest of and how you will reach them and invite them to a call to discuss their needs and make the offer. Of course, sometimes the lines are blurry, and in some cases, an individual will go make the case for doing your program to their employer, who, if it fits that person's training needs or professional development plan, the company will fund it from their training budget. If your client is a large corporation, they may want to book several of their people onto your program, and you can leverage your time and effort because you'll potentially be able to create one group of many participants with one sales call. If you want to work with people in organizations or companies, or you help businesses, the fastest way to sell your program is not through an automated funnel necessarily. Really, you need to orchestrate a one-to-one conversation with the key individual responsible for making the purchase decision. For instance, in corporate organizations, typically you want to find the person responsible for training, personal well-being, IT, finance, and so on. It's still helpful to have a sales page and a brochure as a marketing asset that you can attach to an email or send someone to, or send someone back to if you've already spoken to them. So let me give you an example. If you're selling to an individual, perhaps someone who is a leader in an organization, then they will be interested in maybe investigating their leadership styles with an idea to improve in certain areas. The organization, on the other hand, will be really interested in having leaders who are able to be responsive, agile, be able to change their leadership style to suit the changing world that we live in. So they have a very different eye on the ultimate impact that is required from the training. So all of this is really important in creating a compelling demand narrative. So once you're clear whether you're selling into an organization or selling directly to an individual, let's move to creating the demand narrative that's going to be the backbone of your sales page. The tighter and the more focused, the more targeted you can get your demand narrative, the more likely you're going to connect and resonate with your target buyer. And that's where the sales process becomes much faster because it's easier for them to say yes to your offer. The demand narrative is kind of the why this, why now, why you explanation. The what, who, and how. Essentially, it's the story behind why your ideal client or customer would want to enroll in your program or buy places for their staff. You guide your prospect through the process of exploring whether your offer, your program, is what they need and whether it's value for money for the results you deliver. There's an element of whether your method sounds plausible and fun, but generally, it's whether they see the program as relevant, compelling, and something they see the value in for themselves. And quite often, it's also about why they need it now, why it's important now, because you don't want people to think, oh, that's interesting, I'll come back to it later, and actually they never do. If you're working B2B, it's very likely that the person you need to speak to who makes the buying decision in an organization is not the direct beneficiary, as I said before. And what I mean by that, again, is they're probably not the person who would be doing your program. So it's important your demand narrative, in this case, addresses the needs of the organization and the impact you bring through the work you do with the individuals. Make sense? People often forget this because they're so wrapped up with the people they actually serve, the people they work with directly, and they're less used to the sales process or conversation with, say, the training manager, the team leader, or even the CEO. And those people often have to make the case to their finance person too, plus lots of complicated procurement hoops to jump through. And that's why the B2B sales cycle can be much longer, but actually it's still leveraged because you can sign up 10 people in one go. Having worked predominantly in non-profit sector for our consulting work, I can tell you the wheels turn very, very slowly. Working with small businesses and solo practitioners is way faster because those people are making the decision for themselves, usually without a whole committee meeting. Once you have the demand narrative, there are various marketing assets you might want to create. Here's 6. 1. A strategic email series. 2. A compelling sales page. 3. A punchy brochure. 4. An insightful webinar. 5. A pithy presentation. And 6. A professional proposal. There's 2, maybe 3 in that list that really are all you need. Emails, a sales page, and possibly a webinar. You definitely will need to create the series of email messages, whatever other pieces you put in place. 4 to 5 well-constructed emails are a key part of an effective sales process. So make sure you spend some time really homing in on your core message pillars, what it is, why they need it, and how it works for your target audience. Sales funnels are all the rage, and there's so many tools that help you map it out, play around with forecasting, build it into complex sequences, and track conversions. It's unsurprising that to some business owners, the mere mention of sales pages can create a great deal of stress. And certainly that's what I hear from a lot of my clients, is how do I structure it? How do I put it in? How do I get good at copywriting? All of those kind of pieces. And remember, I did an episode, I interviewed the wonderful Laura McDowell, where we talked a lot about content planning and copywriting and really connecting with your audience in a way that resonates and they think, yes, this is exactly what I need. And in episode 21, I also busted a few myths about sales funnels and so-called launch formulas, because, all we're talking about here is the need to put together a nurturing process that's going to take your prospects from interested to invested in the shortest time possible. So if setting up an effective email funnel that gets opens, clicks and sales is what you're after, then that's the kind of thing I help people with, get really down to the detail in the Leverage Business Accelerator program. We really get to the practicalities, roll up our sleeves together and get those emails crafted. So we now need to assemble an engaging and high-value customer journey. Whichever combination of tools you choose becomes your customer's journey into your world and into your offer. So be strategic. Be very intentional about each piece and how it fits the need. In my book, I outline a pathway that's just 3 steps: engage, educate, and enroll. And I talk about client dating as a way to move along that pathway. It's the process you take someone through to build the relationship, just like dating. If you don't know each other too well, you start by dating. This is a long sales funnel. But if you already have a good relationship, and that's why we often start with warm market for people new into business or new with an offer, the process in the funnel can actually be much shorter. You might get engaged. And when you've really wooed and wowed your perfect person, you can ask them to marry you, make the offer, ask for the sale. Generally, your prospect is already sold on you and just needs reassurance to say yes. So the sales funnel looks long and thin, or short and fat, or somewhere in between. And the shape and length of the process really depends on the level of work you need to do to engage, educate, and enroll the new client. Track your numbers at each stage too, so you can see how easy or fast each step is happening for your people. I'd say the dating funnel with cold leads probably needs to be really wide at the top unless you have very warm and pre-qualified contacts. That means you're more likely to have a fast and effective sales process if your visitors are really well-targeted visitors, or you're making an offer to an existing and responsive email list or a super loyal and attentive group of social media followers. I tend to work more from my email list than social media, but it really depends on your business. That said, if you really want to work on the copy in your communications and you have a great sales page or webinar that really resonates with your audience and you can get in front of the right crowd, it can also convert really fast from a standing start. A kind of whirlwind romance, if you like. But it's unusual if you're not a master marketer or experienced salesperson. If not, then you'll have to do some serious romancing, lots of gifts and loving gestures to show your audience you really care and understand them in order to nurture and grow the relationship before you ask for the sale. So depending on how aligned, targeted, and positioned your content is, you can manage to get people to sign up for a high-end offer in just 1 step with a well-structured sales pathway. To do that, you'll need a very well-crafted sales page or a video series, a webinar, or face-to-face presentation, where you have more opportunity to build trust. Peter Drucker, one of the most widely known and influential thinkers on management, said, "The role of marketing is to make selling superfluous." In other words, the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits and sells itself. Ideally, marketing should result in a customer who's ready to buy. So if you've been courting your person a little while, or you offer an online course as bait, the engagement funnel can be much shorter and narrower. A good learning experience can springboard the relationship and trust building that otherwise would need to happen through a lot of touch points, using traditional and often expensive marketing and sales methods. And your conversions are likely to be higher because you need less people coming into your funnel. Those who go through one of your free courses or free sessions become pre-qualified and pre-sold on what you deliver, and they convert more readily. The best way to lift your success rate in any of these funnels is to, 1, be aligned and targeted with your ideal audience, so you're having an on-message dialogue and can generate high-quality, responsive leads. 2, become a well-positioned and visible brand in your industry or field of expertise, so your prospects can easily get to know, like, and trust you. And 3, develop excellent enrollment skills, i.e. you can elegantly close your leads on your high-end service or program. So let's now look at whether you work on a launch strategy or a rolling strategy. We talked about creating a high converting sales page back in episode 23, so I'm not going to go into detail on the structure or what to include in that page. It's all covered in that episode. And there's an article based around the transcript if you prefer a written version. Now, on your sales page, and possibly again in your enrollment call, you need to provide answers to common questions, objections that prospective buyers have, from broad, is it a fit questions to specific details. By comparison to having people just buy a place on your program and you don't know who you're going to get, having a discovery call with a prospective new client is such a joy. But the downside is I have to have a session with every individual as I fill my group cohort, rather than with one representative of an organization who can book several places. So just to say quickly that on your sales page and possibly again in your enrollment call, you're going to get questions come up and you need to provide answers to those kind of questions or objections that prospective buyers have. Now, the more I've learned about those questions, the more I actually build those answers, handling those objections into my sales page and into my discovery call structure. But sometimes these can be a broad question like, is it a fit? To very specific detailed questions. Essentially, who does it help? Will it work for my industry or niche? How does the program run? Will it work for their schedule, time, as well as their budget? Basically, they want to know what's involved. Will it work for me? How long does the program last? What's the time commitment? What time are the live calls? Are the live sessions recorded? Why is it more expensive than other things they've seen? Can I pay in installments? Can I get a refund if I don't see results? Those are the key things that I've found come up time and again. So I try to handle those, as I said, in the sales page and on the call itself before they even ask them. Now, one of the best and fastest ways to not only get the information across, but to build trust is that consultation call. But you can also do it through a webinar. So I want to just say a little bit here about those two approaches. In my book, there's quite a bit on webinars as an educational tool, but here's essentially why you should have a free webinar or perhaps a video series. And we'll also look at how to promote it, because that's one of the biggest things. There's no point in having a webinar if nobody actually comes. In today's increasingly busy and competitive marketplace, it's not enough to just throw up a lead magnet and a few social media posts. That's not going to cut it, especially if your offer is high-end and high-ticket. A webinar is a great way to help people see all the ins and outs and get to know, like, and trust you so they can make a considered purchase. And that sense of trust and decision can happen pretty fast with a webinar. There's 3 pieces of the puzzle to focus on doing well. First, the way you structure and market the webinar is important for ensuring people actually show up to buy. And second, you need to do your homework and choose a hot topic that's connected to your paid program. And third, you need to portray a professional image and deliver a killer presentation. Now, let's remind ourselves, the perfect webinar and the perfect sales pitch don't happen overnight. It's a learning curve. So be patient and keep improving each piece, tracking your conversions at the key points. When you get those things working well, a webinar is a perfect way to build a trusting relationship in a short time frame, so your offer becomes a no-brainer. A key part of using a webinar is getting people to sign up and attend, right? So your content, social media, and emails are certainly an important ingredient in the process. What I've seen working is where the host, as the expert, is building excitement without being spammy. It's stepping up to showcase their expertise and to give value. 2 little tricks that can speed things up are to use video, as you get a very fast connection if people can see and hear you first, so they know what they get more of on the webinar. And you can drive visitors to your webinar invite page very fast by using paid ads on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Google Ads, wherever you reach your target market, because you can get super targeted traffic by setting up your demographics. If you get some help, it doesn't have to cost you a fortune per click, but make sure you're tracking how well those clicks convert to webinar registrations and through to sales. In episode 29 on leveraging group programs a couple of weeks ago, we touched on how you can use paid advertising to drive registrations for your webinar. And if you don't have a big list or a big following on social media, that's by far the fastest way to get people into your sales process. So now let's turn to making the offer on a discovery call. Because another great way that we can sell a high-ticket program fast is to get people on a call. In my day, it used to be the telephone. Nowadays, more often we use Zoom. And just as with video or a webinar where people can see you and hear you and maybe interact with you if it's live, a one-to-one discovery session is a great bridge to help someone get to know, like, and trust you again, more so than the phone and definitely more so than emails. It's often been a reason people prefer to close the sale in person, because if you want someone to feel confidence in you to buy, you need to look them in the eye and shake their hand, right? So nowadays with Zoom, you're at least halfway there. A discovery call works great for both parties, for you and your prospective client for your program. It's the best way to determine if someone is the right fit for an online group program, especially if there's a participative or coaching element. And after you've explained what's in the package, what you're helping them with is making the decision that's the best one for what they want to achieve. B2B may involve a bit of flexibility or customization or negotiation, but it's essentially the same kind of consultative sales. And that's why the sales page is just one step in the process of discovery for your potential program participants. Some of you probably dread or detest doing those calls. You can't get your mind away from knowing at the end of the call you'll have to try and sell something to someone. And I delved into that mindset piece in episode 23, how to use consultative sales to enroll with ease and grace. Go listen in to get your belief in the right way up on that whole question of serving versus selling. Because the truth is, discovery or strategy calls are hands down the best and fastest way to get to know a potential client or for them to get to know you. It's a quick route to building the trust they need to say yes to your offer and purchase your program. There's a school of thought that says you're doing the right prospect a disservice if you don't help them say yes, if you think that it's a great fit for what they need. And that comes back to your belief in what you do and your confidence that you can deliver the result or outcome that they want to achieve. They just need to be able and willing to pay to get it. And they don't work for free, and neither do you. And it's also because you need to know you can help them to make sure you're the right person for them and that your online group program is the right solution before they invest. No point wasting each other's time or money or ending up with a disgruntled person wanting a refund. So that call is so important for both of you. Hopefully you agree that the Discover call is super valuable and an essential part of the sales process. It's a great entry point in the relationship you'll have with them as a client. So make sure you're planning effective sales calls and setting yourself up for success. However, just bear in mind that individual discovery calls are also a drain on your time and energy. So if these are not converting into sales, you need to improve your skills or get better at pre-qualifying who you speak to. I use an application process where I ask specific questions about the business and where they're at. When you can really rock your discovery sessions, you start the ball rolling for good and long-lasting relationship with your client. Whether you call it a discovery call or a strategy call or an exploratory call, it really is the best way to open up that part of the conversation to understand their context, identify their needs, and help your person make the right decision to buy. In a future episode, I'll go over the structure I use in my strategy calls and share some tips on how to have better discovery sessions and make more sales. So please do send in any questions you have or let me know if there are specific issues or challenges you face so I can make sure to cover those. The link to submit a question, written or recorded audio, whatever you prefer, is jallison.com/podcast/QA. And that's it for this two-parter, how to craft an offer and sell it fast. If you'd like to have a chat one-to-one, go ahead and book a discovery call with me. You knew I was going to say that, right? So next week, I have an amazing guest for you, Danny Matthews, who joins me to talk about how to create a standout brand and leverage it. And because our brand is about way more than logos and colour schemes, you're going to want to listen in and get the lowdown as we dive into offer positioning that attracts your ideal and perfect clients. So it really is the beginning stage of what we talked about today. So join me next Friday, and that's ciao for now. Thank you for listening to the Leverage Business Podcast. Want to create leverage in your business? Did this episode provide some insights and ideas to be thinking through? If so, subscribe so you get alerts when the next one's released. If you want to learn more or would like help and support with building a leveraged business that achieves true freedom for you, then head over to jallison.com/podcast to find all the resources and links that go with this show on my website and to join our iSuccess community. And if you're enjoying our content, it would be great if you could pop into Apple Podcasts or the app you listen from and leave me a rating and review. Everyone makes a difference to improving our rankings. So thank you if you've done that already. I appreciate you. So hey, that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope you've loved this episode and have some great takeaways to be thinking through. I wish you a pleasant, productive and profitable week, and I'll see you again next time for another episode of the Leverage Business Podcast.